Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. We are discussing with regard to Sampajanya, which is translated as general details, some say daily activities, or you can say it's a common sense, operate within the framework of precepts, loving kindness and compassion. It has been presented in four different segments of Sampajanya. Number one is beneficial. Number two is suitable and appropriate with regard to space, time, and people. Number three is domain. And number four is non-delusion. So that is the way it presented. So if you look in here, the first 1 and 2. 1 and 2 is one need to know whenever one is doing something, whether it is beneficial or not, and also whether it's suitable and appropriate in terms of space, time, and people. And we are specifically talking about meditation. So you can say this 1 and 2, Sampajanya 1 and 2 is preparatory. In other words, you have to think it, sort it out, plan it, properly put into place. Preparatory stage. Number 3, Kosara Sampajanya, domains of a meditator. And domains of a meditator is simply meditation. Meditation is domain. You stay within that domain. And number 3 is the actual execution. Okay. Putting hard work, okay, in accordance with the instruction. And the fourth one is asamoha sampajanya, non-delusion. In here, that is discovery or unfolding of the nature of nama and rupa because of the hard work you have put, because you have stayed in the domain of a meditator in meditation constantly, uninterruptedly. When you say that, number 4 unfold by itself. So those are the 4 types presented. And here, these 4 types can be expanded. Okay? Our teachers, Buddhas, starting from the Buddha, and all the wise and sages and learned monks, they have presented in 6 different types, 6 different percent. In other words, actual execution, how to do it. Basically, it is the how to correctly and precisely do the 4 parts that we have discussed about. And they divide it into 6 divisions. And the first one is, okay, again, what the Buddha said. Basically, it's a precise instruction how to do it. When a yogi steps forward, he or she knows he is stepping forward. When a yogi steps backward, he or she knows is stepping backward. That's it. That is precisely what Buddha said. When you are stepping forward, you must know exactly you are stepping forward. When you are stepping backward, you must know exactly you are stepping backward. Of course, Buddha didn't sit down and explain in details long hours. It's just precisely to the point, that's it. And his disciple expanded, because his disciple, there are some who know exactly what the Buddha is talking, what his intentions are, what encompasses under that statement. More like his disciple, okay, left hand, right hand, and so on. The senior disciple who are very learned, learned in terms of course, they don't have anything to learn at that other than what Buddha's taught them. But they have intelligence so great, they can see through and understand when Buddhas make a comment. And they expound it and expand it, and they taught again to their disciple, immediate disciple, and so on and so on. And with centuries, as has come down, they have been explained in detail in many different ways. So that's where these details are coming about. So what does it mean by when one is stepping forward, knows that is stepping forward? One stepping backwards knows that is stepping backward. And this stepping forward and backward is again divided into 4 different stages. Okay. One is when one is walking. Okay. When one is walking, one must know that one is walking, stepping forward or stepping backward. That's one. And the other one is when one is sitting, must know when one is stepping forward or stepping backward. And also, when one is standing, one must know one is stepping forward or stepping backward. And when one is lying down, one must know stepping forward or stepping backward. So we translate it in English, so it's called stepping, stepping, stepping. It only makes sense, of course, when walking. How can you step while you are sitting or standing or lying down and so on? So it is not precise, but that is the word they translated and used. But if you use another word, it becomes quite general. You can say moving forward or moving backward. And if you use the word moving forward and backward, then it makes sense in all 4 of them in English language. So this stepping forward and backward is divided into 4 subdivisions based on the posture. One is a sitting posture, one is a standing posture, one is a walking posture, and one is a lying down posture. Based on the 4 posture, it has been again subdivided. So that is the first instruction the Buddha gave. And of course, all these things are our learned teachers, okay, explain and explain so that we don't have unwavering interpretation, to be precisely able to do things. So let's talk with something that is most clearly understood with stepping forward. We are walking. When we are walking, of course, there's a step, 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 step. So it makes sense. perfectly in terms of the language and the word, stepping forward. And of course, we all know when we are doing stepping forward, we can see in details, okay, lifting or dropping, or lifting, pushing, dropping. And then raising, lifting, pushing, dropping, touching, pressing, and so on. These are all a part of this stepping forward. You're walking. So in here, whenever someone is moving, okay, walking, that's when it is used stepping forward. You can, as we have said, these can be applied in the more general way and more specific and details retreat setting way as well. We start with the general way, what the monks used to do. They live about a mile or two away from the village. For the alms round, they have to walk to the village. Okay. When they are heading to the village, that is the stepping forward. And when they come back from the village back to their place where they meditate, that is stepping backward. Going forth, coming back. That can be applied as stepping forward and stepping backward. And also, very specifically and precisely, it can be simply you are moving in the direction where you are facing, that's stepping forward. On some occasion, you need to step back, which you are not facing in that direction. Actually, the foot moved back. That's also stepping backward. And in these instances still, this stepping forward and backward apply. Make a forward movement, and the foot go backward, opposite direction where you are facing. That also apply. And another one is, especially what we are doing totally in a retreat setting. We don't go around. We specifically choose a path. Okay, each of us, ideally about 20 feet is ideal, 20, 25 feet. And then from the starting point, you walk till to the end of the path. And when you got to the end of the path, that going, starting from there to the end of the path is called stepping forward. And then of course you turn around and you walk back, and that is called stepping backward, stepping back, stepping forward, stepping back. So when we say stepping forward and backward or back, applies all these instances. So in English, that's the best word that they use. They cannot do too much changeable. And whenever you are doing this thing while you are walking, it's called stepping forward and stepping backward. When you step forward, one must know one is stepping forward. When you are stepping backward, one must know, one must be aware that you are stepping backward. That is the instruction. As it is an instruction, we all do this walking meditation. Okay? We choose a path and we go back and forth. And then in here, lifting, pushing, dropping. Lifting, pushing, dropping. We're walking that way. We are watching. That means details. You can say just like step, 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 left, right, left, right, left, right can be done. When you got details, you can go lifting, pushing, dropping. If you want more details, okay, more details, you can go to 5 parts, 6 parts. You know how to do it. Lifting, pushing, dropping. And then you are observing your walking meditation. You're observing each and every movement. So in here, I like to put in one aspect that will apply to everything what we are going to talk now and in future with regard to meditation. What are we practicing? We are practicing insight meditation, Vipassana. Okay? We are not practicing samatha or concentration meditation. Okay? When you practice concentration meditation, what is the object? The object is a concept. Whatever you choose, that's a concept. Or the object is the apparent reality. Okay? Apparent reality. Or apparent truth. Apparent reality, apparent truth. It's a concept. It can be observed and you got absorbed into it. That's it. And the intention or objective, more correctly, objective or goal is to be able to absorb into the object. Attain a stillness, total stillness, becoming one with the object. And experiences calm, peace, serenity. That is the objective. And these can be later manifested as, or its effects could be future. One can be reborn in the human world, one can be reborn in the Deva realm, and one can be reborn in the Brahman realm. The highest realm, Brahman. Meditation always, if you practice to the fullest, you are definitely reborn in a Brahman realm. That is a goal and objective. But the key point here is the objects are concept, okay? Apparent reality. Apparent truth. And then here is we are practicing insight meditation. So when we are practicing insight meditation, what is the object? What is the object? The real object, what you are supposed to be. Okay? We already know apparent reality or apparent object or a concept is a object of concentration meditation. So in insight meditation, the object is the ultimate reality. Ultimate reality, not a concept. It is the ultimate truth. Ultimate reality, ultimate truth. That is the object. What's the difference between the apparent reality and ultimate reality? Apparent reality is it can be transmute, change. Never ending changing process. It can be transmuted or muted. In the ultimate reality, it cannot be split into any other thing anymore. That's what it is. It is not changeable. It is what it is. What it means is, as it really is, ultimately true. It cannot be transmuted into any other thing anymore. That is the ultimate reality, and that's the difference. So in here, we are observing or practicing insight meditation. So our object is ultimate reality. Because if it is not ultimate reality, then we are not practicing insight meditation. And we all know what ultimate reality is. In the rupa matter, okay? We don't say a car or a table or a chair or a bowl or a bag, a bell, because these are all concepts. Man, woman concept, female, male concept. It can be split into many other things. It can be changed into many other things. But what is the ultimate reality of rupa or material? Okay. In short, and also which is obvious to observed, is the full, essential, great full essential. We call it earth element, fire element, wind element, water element. But more precisely, we know we are referring to the qualities and characteristics of them: hard and soft, heavy and light, hot and cold, and so on. Those are the things, the characters that exist in every material object. These exist. Whichever material object you look at it, these four great elements exist. It is not one at a time. They all exist together. So that is for the rupa. And also nama has its own characteristics, ultimate. Okay. Simply that we all know what is the characteristics of nama. Ability to be aware. Ability to know. Awareness. That quality is nama, among other things. So those are the ultimate reality, and if you are practicing Vipassana meditation, that is the real object that you are supposed to be observing, or you are supposed to be totally setting your mind onto. So there's a clarity and distinction between the two. But at the same time, when we are practicing Vipassana, we cannot escape from this rupa, the conceptual model of rupa. Okay. First and foremost, we are observing in this body. We don't observe externally, we observe internally in this body. So as soon as you say this body, you can say this whole body. And as soon as you say this whole body, that's form and shape. Head and shoulders and legs and hands and stomach and so on. All these things are there. And we live with it, and we are familiar with it so well since the day we were born till now. So whenever we pay attention, first and foremost that came to our awarenesses, these forms and shapes, with the concept, the hands or stomach, or head, or nose, or back, or knees. These are there. We can't avoid it. So at the beginning, while you are meditating, as soon as you observe the abdominal, even the word is rising movement of the abdomen and falling movement of the abdomen. So those two are there. So you can't avoid it. You will still come face to face. You have to deal with it. But at the same time, we understand The true object of meditation for insight is ultimate reality, not apparent reality. So, by understanding clearly in that way, when you are meditating Vipassana, you will come across this form concept as well as its movement or hot or cold. You will see both of them. And if you understand the clarity what Vipassana is, your mind must be inclined to observe the ultimate reality. But you do not focus or give great attention to the concept of apparent reality. Okay? In other words, you have to streamline your mind, not to dwell much, or if at all, except pushing and blocking away onto the form and concept. But your mind should be inclined to see the ultimate reality, because ultimate reality is the object of meditation for Vipassana. That little explanation should be clearly understood in your mind when you practice. So when you see abdominal movement, abdomen, which means the stomach, the form, you don't block it, just acknowledge it. You have a sense of pain in your knee, and the knee is quite obvious. Acknowledge it. Awareness of that knee, which is the form and shape. But do not further put deeper observation into that form, but go right into the pain, because pain, Vedana, is the ultimate reality. That is how one needs to practice. You see? In general, don't focus on the concept of form. If they come across in a process of observation, acknowledge it and move on. But whenever you come across the ultimate reality, that is where you need to really penetrate deeply into it. So that should be applied in all aspects of your meditation, insight meditation. That understanding should be really deep into your psyche. Because even though we say apparent reality and ultimate reality, they coexist. They don't. About a mile away there's the ultimate reality, and another mile away from the opposite side there's the apparent reality. They don't exist that way. They exist at the same time, at the same moment, at the same space and time. These two coexist. Because of that, you have to deal with it. But in a normal daily life, most of the average people life, okay, we deal so much with this form and shape and size, the concept, apparent reality so much, we are not too aware of the ultimate reality. Although they exist in the same time and space at the same moment, concept of form and shape is very obvious, and when it is very obvious, the ultimate reality is buried right at the bottom. You don't sense, you don't see, you don't deal with it. But if you practice and practice and practice insight meditation, slowly and slowly, the ultimate reality buried at the bottom starting to float upward. And the form and the shape began to sink. At one point, whenever you observe it, ultimate reality is more obvious right in front of you, and this concept and form drifted farther and farther away. You become less and less aware of it. eventually at one point, that form and shape, the concept, apparent reality is not in your awareness anymore. All that you are aware is ultimate reality. That is, with great practice, with effort, with perseverance, and when you become skillful, there is no more form. It is not that the form disappears from the universe. The form is still there, but that form is not in your awareness anymore. Everything is the ultimate reality. The immutable characteristics of these that associate with the form are the only one you are aware. That's what it happened, and that's how these two correlate. So I want to emphasize that one, so that I won't be repeating again and again when we go through the observation and noting. This must be clearly understood. So in here, we are observing rising movement or falling movement, or in this particular case, we are talking about walking meditation. Lifting, pushing, dropping, lifting, pushing, dropping the foot. So when you lift, at the beginning you might be aware of the toes, or you might be aware of the heels. Sometimes you become even aware, the beginners, the whole leg. These kind of things come. Acknowledge it. You don't have to block it. But that's why when you are doing the walking meditation, direct your attention to near the sole of the foot, not even the whole foot, the sole of the foot. And if you have a sense of the form and shape, so be it. Note it. But you know that is not what you are supposed to be penetrating. You are supposed to be penetrating the ultimate reality. So when you live as a lifting movement, push, pushing movement, drop, dropping movement. So it's the movement, or it is the behavior of the body. Behavior of the body. That's why it is called Kaya Nupassana, mindfulness of the body, or mindfulness of the form. We have to start with the form because that's what we know. And after knowing what we are supposed to do, we don't focus too much on the form, and then we focus on its ultimate character, reality, or characteristics, specific characteristics. So when you lift, you might be aware of the heel or the toes, and also the movement, two things. But give more emphasis on the movement rather than the form. And slowly, you will find that you become less and less aware of the form, the heel or the toes, but it is that movement. And then the same thing, pushing and dropping, lifting, pushing, dropping, lifting, pushing, dropping. Clockwise, back and forth, stepping forward, stepping backward. Back and forth, you observed. And while you're observing there, at one point, when your meditation becomes stronger, suddenly you begin to feel, or you begin to see the foot is more like appendages. The foot is one thing and awareness is one thing, two different things. That is the way you begin to sense. In other words, before the concept and ultimate reality are mixed in, and now starting to separate. you see the foot as a foot and awareness as awareness, it becomes two different things. Before, the movement and the forms are all together, and I am moving, I am moving, I am moving. That's, I'm lifting this foot, I'm pushing this foot, I am dropping this foot. That is the way we feel and we understand. And when you begin to see there's a form and there's the awareness, and suddenly you come to realize, no, this I is actually two things. There's two parts. Still I. There's two parts. One part is physical and one part is mental. Still, there's a sense of I there, but you begin to see there's a twin phenomenon in operation under the concept of I. That is when you can note quite clearly. You have to be perseverance, and then you focus more on the specific characteristics. And you see more and more this form as slowly and slowly is the four great elements. There's a movement. You begin to see the form more and more clearly, and suddenly in our meditation instruction we give one more. Okay? Especially when you're walking at the end of the line, you stand and you turn around, and before you turn around you are instructed to observe your desire to turn, your intention to return, your wish to turn. Starting to observe that thing. So you begin to observe that intention to turn, desire to turn, and then turning. And then you inject that whenever that's the end of the line, before it turns, you start it. At the beginning, it is more like you're just saying, intending to turn, turning, turning, intending to turn, turning, turning. And more like a automatic. But if it is automatic, put a little more emphasis or go deeper on the intending to turn. Don't go intending to turn, turning, turning, automatic, intending to turn. Try and feel it, try and sense it. And then turning, turning, turning. See what's the relationship between that intending to turn and turning? How do they change one to the other? How do they connect to the other? All that you need to is look at deeper into the present moment. It is not that you are looking into the intention or you are looking into the turning. Look deeply into the moment than before. And suddenly, with practice, and with repeated practice, you can accurately feel and sense your intention. Intention to turn, turning, turning, and then walk again. And then we interject more, if you can, once that become a little skillful, before lifting, intending to lift, lifting, and so on. You just keep on walking, you just observing. Whenever you can, the intention that happened before the actual movement. If you observe that, what happened is slowly and slowly, okay, with repeated exercise, at one moment you begin to feel this intention is one thing, and this turning is another thing. You begin to feel the separateness between these two processes. Intention is one thing, turning is one thing. And when you begin to accurately sense, intention is a one thing, turning is another thing, that moment it is said that you have a discriminative awareness. between nama and rupa, the mind and matter. Before, we always look mind and matter as one unit. And with that careful observation, first of all, try to concentrate based on specific characteristics of rupa, matter. And then when that becomes skillful, insert intention. Just keep on putting it, but don't just put it in an automatic way. Put it deeply into that intention, and suddenly you feel intention is one moment, one different process. Turning is another moment, another separate process. That is the understanding or discriminative awareness of nama and rupa. We call it nama rupa paricheda jnana, the first insight of the 13 stages. You have to have that real distinction, a sense, without thinking, without railroading yourself. Simply being at the moment, deeper and deeper and deeper, and you will see the separateness of the two. And then, pretty good, you go on. And all that you do is, you keep doing this walking meditation, lifting, pushing, dropping, lifting, pushing, dropping, and intention wherever you can. Intention before you turn, intention before you lift, intention before you push. But don't just put these in. Okay, I'll put these in, I can do all. That is the wrong attitude. You only put these things in more and more and more when you are become skillful. Skillful means you just send that separateness of intention and lifting to separate. And when that is really good, you move on to another one. And you must have that clear distinction between the two in every movement. One at a time. Don't just pour everything at one moment. I can do it, I can do it. That is nothing. You are trying to become skillful like a robot, but you are not penetrating into the object. Penetrating into the object is seeing the ultimate reality of the object. That's penetrating into the object. So in here, you look and you look and you look. And when you feel and when you see the separateness between the mind and matter, okay, this is nama, this is rupa, your meditation is pretty good, pretty good. You have progressed quite a bit. And then you keep walking, okay, inserting intention as much as you could. And then what happens is, during the process, you do the lifting. Before you simply the movement, you're watching the movement, lifting. You can sense, you can feel the lifting movement. And the closer you look at that lifting movement, at that moment, suddenly you also see another characteristic. Along with the movement, there's a feeling of lightness. A feeling of lightness. And then when you push too, there's a more like a swinging, gliding sensation. That is a feeling, it's a manifestation of lightness. There's a movement and there's a lightness. You are aware of both. And then when you drop your foot, okay, there's a movement, of course. And along with it, if you really stare into it, and if your dropping movement is slow enough, you can feel the foot become heavier and heavier and heavier. I use the word foot, but actually it's simply a feeling of being heavy. Movement and heaviness. So what you are having was this lightness. Lightness means that's a fire element. Heavy is the earth element. and also water element. The main characteristic of lightness is the fire, and also wind has something. So in other words, all these little things that you are seeing, light and heavy, hot and cold, these are you are penetrating into the ultimate realities of rupa, ultimate reality of materiality. And whenever you are doing walking meditation, you have a distinction between the mind and matter, or nama and rupa, and also all these little specific characteristics are there, all together. And in that way, your meditation have progressed another level. Before it was pretty good. Now is really, really good to this another level. And all that you have to do is you simply do the same thing. The key thing is the intensity, the effort you put in to see deeply and closely at that moment. That has to be keep on increasing. The more you increase, the more you will. Okay, just a little bit of cautionary. Some yogi can do it, most yogi can do it, but there are some yogis, it is just how their physical construct is. If they put so deeply into it and they begin to have headache or lightness or dizziness, these kind of things happen. Not everybody, but some. And for those kind of people, if it happens that like that, just pull it back. You're putting too much effort. Pull it back. Pull it back, not be too deep, and still watch. But that doesn't mean that you have to pull back and stay there at the pull back mode ever. And suddenly your headache goes away, your dizziness goes away, push again. Pull back again, push again, pull back again. If you have a problem, that's how you do it. If you don't have a problem, just keep that intensity on a full bar. Because that intensity, that closeness, that penetrative being with the moment is the one that will unfold the Dharma, the true nature of the object. So you look at it with that intensity, and then what happened was, let's use a specific example. You are there at the end of the line, standing, and then intending to turn. You see that intention. In other words, that is the consciousness. In other words, that's the mind, citta. Intention very clearly. You see that intention, and then you know when the intention comes, and you know when the intention stops. And as soon as it stops, you see or you feel the body or the foot starting to turn. Okay. Intention is one, and you can see the intention really well from the beginning to the end. Only when the intention ended, then the foot starting to turn. At that moment, there is no intention. The foot is just turning, turning, turning. You begin to see this kind of process. Intention and the physical or body behavior that follows it. But with the separateness. And then suddenly you understand intention is the cause, turning is the effect. Intention is the cause, turning is the effect. You begin to see the relationship between the nama and rupa, the mind and matter. Pichaya parigaha jnana. causal relationship between mind and matter. You actually experience it. You see, because you don't have to read, you don't have to be told, you actually see, you see the intention, and suddenly the foot just moved. There's a one command center, they send the command, and when they receive the command, the other department does the job. That you see it clearly. And if you see that way, okay, number one, it is said, you have seen the causal relationship between mind and matter. And also, if you want to talk in terms of jnana, you are on the cusp or at the beginning of the udayavaya jnana, rising and passing away. Because you have to see that intention arise and pass away clearly, and then followed by the foot turning. Two separate. Only then you see with clarity the causal relationship. To see the causal relation with clarity, you must be at the beginning or at the zone of the fourth jnana. That is how one sees, that is how one experiences. That is, at that moment, you accept to be in a great meditation mode. Great meditation mode. And then all that you do is focus at the present moment. Whatever the behavior or events or object is, intensely, closely, unwaveringly, follow it from the beginning to the end, beginning to the end, beginning to the end. That is how one's to stepping forward and stepping backward in a walking meditation. So with that we will stop. Next talk will be the same thing, walking forward and walking backward while you are sitting. So may all of you be able to practice Satipatthana Vipassana meditation precisely and correctly, and may you be able to penetrate into the true nature of mind and matter as soon as possible. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Buddham pujemi. Dhammam pujemi. Sangham pujemi.